So of course, like the moment I sit down to film, they start mowing the lawn, which is that's just classic. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today we're going to be doing my May wrap up and my June TBR. I had a really good reading month this May. I actually finished the month with 10 books, which is something I have not done in a while. This is definitely my best reading month so far this year, and that's due to a lot of factors that I'll go over when I talk about the books that I read. But since it is such a long list and we also have to do my June TBR, we are just going to get right in to the first book that I read this month, On a Tuesday by Whitney G. So I found this book on Kindle Unlimited, and after reading The Deal by Elle Kennedy, I was kind of in a mood for a sports romance and decided to pick this one up. This follows two seniors in college, Grayson and Charlotte, who are put together for a tutoring pair and their subsequent relationship. This book really has four perspectives. You have Grayson in the past and present, and you have Charlotte in the past and present. This book is a second chance romance, so while you see Grayson and Charlotte's romance forming, you also get flash forwards to what happened to their relationship and the thing that tore them apart and kind of their struggle to find each other again. So I gave this book 3 stars. I kind of wish the author had just stuck with the perspective of them in the past. I found myself kind of skim reading the future chapters because I wasn't really interested in reading about their angst or their longing or the misunderstanding that came between them. I really just wanted to know how their relationship developed. So this book was just kind of not it for me. I don't love those kind of like flashback, flash forward books. I would rather just kind of see the relationship chronologically from beginning to end. That was kind of my issue with the book, but other than that, I thought it was actually pretty good writing, especially for a new adult romance, and it was just a pretty okay read for me. So the next book that I read in May was Fighting Silence by Ali Martinez. This is another Kindle Unlimited sports romance. As you can tell, I went on a kick with it. This is a friends to lovers romance where you follow two childhood best friends growing up with each other while also dealing with really shitty home lives. So this book takes place, I think, over like 7 years. You see our two protagonists as kids kind of looking to each other for comfort in a really crappy situation and watching them grow up with each other and, you know, kind of start to develop more feelings for the other. I gave this book 4 stars. I really loved it. I love how our hero, he used boxing and wrestling and fighting as a way to kind of better himself and to make himself stronger. He and his brothers went to this gym that really promoted, you know, taking care of each other and personal responsibility, and watching them actively trying to get out of the situation that life had put them in was just really inspiring. And all of that on top of the fact that our hero is slowly going deaf just made for a really compelling and beautiful read. I'm really looking forward to reading the other books in the series that are about our hero's younger brothers, and it was just a really nice romance read. So if you're looking for a tearjerker, something to pull at your heartstrings, definitely check out Fighting Silence. So the next book that I read in May was actually an ARC, so thank you so much to NetGalley and the publisher for approving me for it, and that would be 1500 Miles from the Sun by Johnny Garza Villa. I gave this book 5 stars and it'll actually be released on June 8th, so be sure to get it. I don't normally cry in books, so the fact that I did with this book is a big deal. It was such a beautiful story. 1500 Miles from the Sun was a poignant LGBT coming-of-age novel that follows Julian, who has kind of been suffocating under the expectations of others his entire life. When one reckless moment at a party results in him coming out to the world, Julian's life immediately gets much more complicated. Luckily, he has a group of amazing friends to help support him and an amazing Twitter friend slash crush named Matt who slid into Julian's DMs. This book was heartwarming, heartbreaking, funny, and sad. I loved watching Julian with his friends going through some of the hardest things that queer teens face these days. I also love watching Matt and Julian's relationship develop. Julian is from Texas, Matt is from Los Angeles, and just watching their relationship form over text and Instagram and Twitter was just really wholesome and sweet. And if you need a good book to read for Pride Month, this is definitely a great choice. It was just such a sweet book. So as I said earlier, I read a lot of books this month. This was my best reading month of 2021, and a large part of that is due to the fact that I read so many graphic novels. Earlier this month, I released a video where I challenged myself to read only graphic novels for an entire week, and that definitely helped with my book count this month. So since I did an entire video going very in-depth into my thoughts of these, I'm gonna go through them kind of quickly. But yeah, I read 4 graphic novels, and I can't wait to kind of share my thoughts with you. So the first graphic novel that I read this month was Monstrous Volume 3, Haven. This is by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda that takes place in kind of a steampunk alternate reality where a girl has this ancient deity living inside her, and she must go on a quest to figure out how to get him out, how to control him, and kind of discovers a lot of secrets about her own past. I thought this book was really great. I gave it 4 stars. It really moved along the story, and it was just very action-packed and left on a really great cliffhanger that makes me really excited to continue with it. So I really enjoyed this volume. Next, I read Jupiter's Legacy by Mark Miller and Frank Quitely. You might recognize the title as it was just turned into a Netflix show, but I wanted to read the graphic novel series first. Basically, this is about a world in which superheroes exist and what happens when power corrupts. Essentially, we follow 2 children of the most famous superheroes in their quest to kind of discover themselves outside of their parents' shadow. This book is definitely not for the faint of heart. It gets graphic very quickly. Definitely wouldn't recommend it to younger audiences, but if you're a fan of superheroes, if you're a fan of The Boys on Amazon Prime, you will like this book. I found it really great. I'm so excited to read the rest of the series. I gave it 4 stars. The next graphic novel that I read was Sandman Volume 3, Dream Country. So I actually have not read the first 2 books in Sandman. I brought the wrong volume to school with me, so I actually am going to be reading these out of order. But Sandman Volume 3, instead of kind of continuing with the Sandman story, is actually a collection of short stories set within the Sandman universe by Neil Gaiman. So I was actually able to read this one without spoiling myself for the first 2 books, and the short stories in here were really good. I liked some of them more than others. One of the short stories that I really liked was the one entitled A Midsummer Night Dream, where you can actually see Shakespeare and his theatrical troupe performing the play Midsummer Night Dream for the actual fae that the story is about. So like in the audience is Queen Tatiana and King Oberon and Puck and all of the magical creatures. So it was a really cool story, but not all of them were amazing, so I gave it 3 stars. Finally, the last graphic novel that I read this month was Lock and Key by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. I did not love this book. I actually had already seen the Netflix adaptation of this series, and I liked that a lot more than what I read here. It was just like very dark and gruesome. I didn't feel like I really knew the characters by the end of the graphic novel. I honestly couldn't tell them apart at some times. It was just very messy, very quick, very dark, and it just wasn't what I was expecting when picking up this book. Definitely some of that might be due to the fact that I had watched the Netflix adaptation first, but I don't know. This one, the art style, the writing, it just wasn't for me, so I gave it 2 stars. So those were all the graphic novels that I read in the month. Moving on to my next actual book, I read This Golden Flame by Emily Victoria. This was a Fairy Loot book of the month. I don't remember which month, but it is a beautiful copy, as all Fairy Loot books are. I gave this book, I think, 3 stars. This was a really sweet book with an aromantic asexual character. I haven't read a lot of books with asexual representation, so I really loved that about this book. And we follow this character on a journey to escape the oppressive bonds of the ruling government and to find her brother, who she was separated from when they were kids. I thought the magic systems in this world were very interesting. I liked how Emily Victoria kind of combined technology with magic. I thought that was all very cool. But I have to agree with other reviewers that I felt that Emily Victoria was playing it very safe in this book. This is a standalone fantasy, which already is really hard to accomplish because it is so hard to create an entire world and magic system within one book. But that was actually fine. My issue was she played it very safe in terms of the stakes of the book. And I honestly wish that she had kept us a little bit on the ropes more. I never felt that any of the characters were in real danger. It was hard for me to kind of like feel something when a big adventure was happening because I was like, I know everyone's gonna turn out okay. So I wish she had upped the stakes a bit more. I think that would have made it such a better book. So I gave this book 3 stars. If you have a chance to check it out, I would. It's a really quick read, but yeah, just not amazing, but it was an okay read for me. So next up is a book I am super excited to talk about, and that would be The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This particular book was gifted to me by my wonderful friend Erin over at Ripley's Reads, and it was such a good book. All the hype I've heard surrounding this book was correct. This is basically Knives Out if Knives Out was better. I know a lot of people liked that movie. I didn't love it. I found it very predictable, but for me, this is like the perfect version of Knives Out. We follow Avery, who doesn't have the best life. She doesn't have a lot of money, and she's kind of just scraping by when she finds out that this eccentric billionaire has actually left her a ton of money under the stipulation that she live in his mansion for 1 year with his family. This book was full of mysteries and thriller elements. I loved Avery kind of getting to know all of the billionaire's grandsons. They were so hot and amazing. I love the Hawthorne boys, and I'm super excited to read the next book in the series because this book left on such a cool cliffhanger that left so much to be discovered in the next book, and there are so many different ways that the author can take it. I am so excited to see what she does with this series. I found the mysteries to be clever and comprehensive. I didn't really see where it was going, which I really liked. And it was just a really fun, thrillery book. So if you're a fan of books like Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, I think you will also really enjoy this book. So I gave it 5 stars. All right, the final book that I read in May was Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. This is the sequel to Chain of Gold in the Last Hours trilogy. I loved this second installment. I loved watching all of the characters on their own individual and collective journeys together. I feel as though we really got a deeper look into each of the individual characters in this ensemble cast, which I really liked because I love a character-driven story, and while the plot was still a big part of the story, I do feel like a lot of it was character-driven, which I really appreciated. I definitely enjoyed Chain of Gold more than I enjoyed this book, but I still really liked it. The ending has me so concerned for the rest of the series, and I can't wait to see what Cassandra Clare does with it. I gave it 4 stars. So those were the 10 books that I read in May. On to what I want to read in June. So June is Pride Month, so I really wanted to craft a TBR that had queer representation in each book. So the first book on my TBR is a really popular one. Everyone who reads this has said that they really enjoy it, so I'm really excited to, and that is Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. So Song of Achilles is a retelling of either the Iliad or just like the Trojan War in general. Essentially, we follow Achilles, who is this great Greek warrior, and Patroclus, who is, according to mythology, Achilles' lover. So I'm assuming in this book we kind of follow their relationship. I'm really excited to read about it. I love Greek mythology. I love the stories about the Trojan War and Achilles and all the great Greek heroes. So I'm very excited to see it as a romance, and I'm really looking forward to this book as a whole, especially given how much other people love it. So the next book I would love to read in June is actually a graphic novel, and it is The Girl from the Sea by Molly Knox Osterag. This is, first of all, just such a cute cover. I believe it follows a 15-year-old girl named Morgan who I think they moved to a new seaside town, and she's kind of feeling lost in herself until she meets Kelty, who is a mermaid. This graphic novel follows Morgan and Kelty's relationship and their journey to loving one another. I think this is a middle grade book, and I am so excited to read it. It looks so beautiful. The images are really well done, and I just think this book is just gonna be so sweet. I love a nice mermaid human romance, so I'm really looking forward to reading this one. The next book I have on my June TBR is Playing the Palace by Paul Rudnick. I picked this up because the cover really looked like red, white, and royal blue to me, and it actually does follow a prince and a commoner, so super excited for that. It looks like a very quick read. We follow Carter from New York and Prince Edgar and their relationship with each other. So I love a royal romance, and I'm really excited for this one because it's one I haven't really seen talked about a lot, so I'm excited to see if it's any good. The last book I'm hoping to read in June is Heartstopper Volume 2 by Alice Oseman. Yes, I finally got Heartstopper Volume 2 after reading Heartstopper Volume 1 so long ago. I am so excited to watch Charlie and Nick's relationship develop even more. This is a friends to lovers graphic novel series. The last one just left off on such a cliffhanger. I'm so excited to see how this one turns out. It is just such a cute art style, such a wholesome friendship turned romance. I'm so excited to read it. And that is it, you guys. That is my May wrap up and my June TBR. Let me know down below what were your favorite books from May and what are some books you're looking forward to reading in June. If you guys liked this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Hit the notification bell to get updates on when I post. I post every single week, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!